coming. I'm Marianne Dalton. I'm here as the, I guess I'm here, although I'm the technology librarian, I'm here as the coordinator of the collab here, and as an admirer of people who actually illustrate books. I just love book illustration. So I have, as our guests here, we have 4 local illustrators, and because you all are Curtis Library cardholders, I'm assuming you actually live in or near Brunswick.
Yeah.
Good. I'm going to introduce you in reverse alphabetical order today.
I'm a big fan of that. As a person whose name starts with A. Brilliant.
So we have Olga, and I'm going to say it wrong, Pastuchev?
Pastuchev.
Oh, Pastuchev. Thank you. And I have one of her books. Is one of your books here by any chance?
What's the fable? Let's get it out of the back.
Yeah. So you can hold that book up while you just say, this is Olga. And then we have Angelina, and I'm going to say this one wrong too. Buonaiuto?
Pretty close. Yeah,
That's good. It looks Italian.
Yeah.
And let's see, Spring, Rain, here we go. This is one of hers. You can show the camera. And we have Lisa Bassi with The Happiness Tree. Which is right there, and some others. And Charlotte Agel with several books. I Swam with the Seal is the one that I have here, but it doesn't matter. Okay, pick a book.
The old one.
So you can get an idea, if you can see that far, you can get an idea of what kind of pictures they do. So my thought here was to ask a bunch of questions that I wanted to ask as a non-illustrator. And feel free to answer or not if you don't have anything. And we'll see where this goes. Right? So my first question is, as a non-artist, I'm amazed by anybody who can actually learn how to draw. I was going to bring a picture. Some of these books over here have interviews with various artists, and some of them have pictures of things that they've done as kids. You know, what they did as pictures when they were 7. And I said, that's not. I probably did that when I was 7. But somewhere along the way, I just didn't keep going. And I'm curious, what kept you going? What got you started in drawing? What made it so that you kept drawing so that it became the kind of pictures you draw today? Different question?
I don't mind starting by saying that I don't draw. And that was never really the thing that I did. I was always interested in making things and gluing things and coloring things and doing a lot of my own writing and rearranging rooms, and I just was interested in the visual world, and drawing only came through I went to Bowdoin, and I was an art major and had to sort of learn how to draw and learn how to see. But even in my paintings, I think of myself as a complete colorist, and I actually make a living as a color consultant out in the world, not in books. So mine comes from the idea of how shape and color plays off of each other, and the world of color is what sort of drives me. But I sort of have to make myself do the drawing part. The only part of my things that are drawn are tiny little thumbnail sketches that I start with. They actually end up being quite accurate to the end, but it always starts out just like little scribbles, and then I don't really get into the actual drawing part as much as going right to design and then paint. So I'm not the typical illustrator who has these beautiful books of sketches, books of beautiful pencil sketches that lead to an ultimately finished painting. Mine always comes in from from the back, a different door, not necessarily the back door, but so that's sort of where.
Okay. Maybe I should modify my question to be not just drawing.
But it's an interesting question because a lot of illustration is from a strong drawing background,
Right.
which I've always felt a little bit insecure that I don't have.
I'd have to piggyback on that because it's a great question, and I feel like in some ways I'm your opposite. Although I went to Bowdoin and became an art major there too, and I've always drawn, and I'm completely linear, and I love color, but I just splash it on haphazardly, and I don't think about it that much. And I'm also, I guess maybe like you, I think I'm not really an illustrator. I feel more like a writer who draws, but I draw every day, and I draw because I can't help it, and I draw because I always have, but it's for a purpose of idea catching. It isn't so much that I'm really trying to render. I did a little bit of that in college where, the model sat and I rendered and shaded, but I don't have, even when I do a picture book, and I've only ever really illustrated my own, it's something where the funny thing is I don't love to redraw, so maybe I'm not really a real illustrator. I like to draw, and I don't mind rewriting 1,000 million times and tinkering with the words, but if an editor says, well, we like this picture, but could you move the teapot? I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that.
Give me a break.
Give me a break. So I'm not sure if I wear the word illustrator. I don't feel like a real illustrator, but I love to draw, and I draw, because I love to make cards for people, just for people, not, commercial purposes, and I have lots of diaries that are sort of in picture form, don't have many words in them, but I really don't feel like an illustrator. I just happen to illustrate my own books.
I don't know. That's so interesting. Wow.
Either of you have anything to thoughts on that?
I find as an artist just you have to have a creative outlet or you'll burst in some way or another. It doesn't matter if it's drawing or creating color or in some form. You have to just keep creating.
And I just never had that instinct.
You're probably busy doing other things.
I read. I was one of these people that, sat on the couch and read all day, every day. So all those books that you guys write,
Reading is good.
I absorbed. So the two of you at least went to art. Well, not say art school.
To liberal arts school.
Did you? Let's say this. Did any of you take art classes or go to an art school? Obviously you did. Or some of you did. And if so, what did you learn from that? As opposed to just drawing on your own.
You said that thing about learning to see, so that can be part of it. One of my favorite activities as an art student was this professor, Joe Nicoletti. He's a painter in Maine, really wonderful guy. He had this activity that we had the model in one room, and then we could look as much as we wanted, but our notebooks were in another room. So we had to look and then run away and then catch it. So that forced a certain kind of
Attention.
Yeah.
I would say that my most lasting classroom work was in photography with John McPhee.
Oh yeah, John.
Who was just an absolute genius teacher who taught us really such critical ways of seeing light, shadow, and composition in ways that I just can't even tell you. I just felt completely changed by that. And it absolutely is the thread that I can say started my ability to, I've worked as a graphic designer and art director. Now I do interiors, I've done children's books. I feel like the ability to compose and see and have a critical eye for a visual world, a visual setup, and also to appreciate light, the natural world, the changing light. I mean, those things, they can be learned in the classroom. It was really, I think,
Have you told him?
big takeaway. Oh, well, John,
He's
just
gruff.
incredibly hard to tell
I'm going to
things
tell him.
Right, there's so many other great, Mark Wetley also is an incredible teacher there.
Yeah,
but, there's so many things, but I have to say photography is one place where you can just learn the basics of light and color, light and shadow, and how to capture a moment in a composition. So that's my biggest takeaway.
You know what, this is funny, but I'm going to move to that side so you can actually see those people when they're talking to me.
Maybe I should go over and talk to the camera.
How about you guys? Did you take art classes?
I went to art school too.
And did you feel like it upped your game, as it were, or?
Definitely. I think for me it was compositions, visual hierarchies, that sort of thing. How to compose the elements, come through.
difficult. How about you?
I always, from when I was a little kid, I told stories and did pictures for them. But I went into languages, got my degree in Russian, spent a lot of time with translating, interpreting.
How did I not know you had a Russian degree? I had a Russian degree too. So.
Oh, okay. But I just never stopped drawing. I mean, that was something that I always did. I mean, it was like breathing.
Yeah.
And I think that I've had help from people, critiques, but I didn't go to school.
Has anybody else seen the Bread and Puppet Cheap Art Manifesto? Oh, I love it so much. Art is bread, basically. It's not just for museums. And
Is that a book or
it's Bread and Puppet Theater's out of
Yeah.
Vermont, and they
Right.
have an actual broadsheet printed manifesto.
Oh,
It's called the Cheap Art Manifesto, and I keep one outside my classroom. I'm also a public school teacher. I just believe in the dailiness, that thing you said about breathing, the dailiness of it.
so writers tend to, my understanding is they tend to write, many of them, every day as a part of their process of writing. Whether they're writing on a given book or not, they're writing. Is that how you guys work with drawing or illustrating or creating or whatever? You tend to work every day in something in this area? Like you said you do it, you did.
Yeah.
The rest of you too?
I create projects.
If possible.
Yeah.
When you're juggling 3 jobs, you may not be able to, right?
Post-it notes. Post-it notes.
Yeah, if it happens while I'm at work, I'll just stick it on the compensate for later.
That's the key. That's the
You
key
got
right there.
There's a lot of
caricatures of all the
sketches
people you
on
work
register
with?
paper, yeah.
I think what you just said is, to me, the key. If somebody says, like, how do you get your ideas? The key is, like, right when they come. Get them right then, and you stick them in your pocket. You can't say, oh, write that down
I'll
after
remember
work.
that.
It doesn't work that
I'll
way.
remember that later.
No, you never do.
It's 3 rooms away is too far, right?
Yeah.
I have to say, not to take any of the magic out of the creative process, but a deadline is what gets me doing my work, and that counts. And I mean every kind of work. If I don't have a deadline, it doesn't mean that I don't redecorate the house or paint or plant a garden. Or there are so many legitimate ways to be an artist,
Yeah.
setting a table beautifully.
Right.
And I do find raising young children, that was really that's how it happened. We
Yeah.
all made stuff together in order to be creative, but in order to actually work, I need some pressure. And that's how these happened. I wrote with my closest friend, who's a writer who wrote all of these books, and was sort of an engine of getting us an agent and getting us. I mean, she really made that thing happen, and I responded in kind with the deadline. And now I work when I work on a building project. Right now, I'm working on a school doing the interior and exterior colors. We've had way too much time, and now the builder needs the colors. And so I'm
Yes.
on a huge
Nice.
deadline, and all my good work is happening
Yes.
in my sleep. It just so
Yeah.
I
Subconscious
wonder-
is working too, right?
yeah, I don't feel like one of those romantic artists that just does the work for the sake of the work. I do the work.
Well, that was one of my other questions is, it's sort of related to one of my other questions, which is, do you draw or create for yourself or for a particular audience?
That's a good question.
I make my audience a lot of times, and I make my deadlines, and I'll decide, gotta make some new Christmas cards or new birthday cards that I can send to people if I'm in between, and I just have these projects that just keep happening because I make them happen. I'm sure those people aren't sitting around saying, gee, I wonder if Olga's gonna send me a new birthday card, but I make it happen.
What I like about that question is being in these. I was working with Scholastic, HarperCollins, and who else am I talking about? I can't even remember the word. And we Fywell and Friends, which is a big imprint in New York. And so I was going to, my New York editors, and it was a very sort of heady experience to suddenly be launched into the world of being, an illustrating team that had one pretty successful, but some traction. And as soon as we did have traction, we were asked to do things that were off of our heart space. You know, that, well, the market has changed. The market is changing, and right now humor is really selling. So if you guys have a humorous book that you want to present to us, and actually that's where the steam started going out of our partnership. My partner was really willing to jump through those hoops, but I just couldn't do it. I just felt like, well, these match me, these are a match for me, and if there's another match for me, and I believe there will be, but I feel like when you start thinking about the audience too much, then you can lose your way as an artist. You really can, and unfortunately that is an aspect of the larger publishing industry that does, it, drives the market, is what is the audience looking for and what's hot right now, and that can be, discouraging for illustrators, but I don't think it actually should be. I think there is an audience for every artist. As long as you're true to it.
I have had a lot of luck with 13 books and a lot of rejection, and so maybe 6 different publishers, and I think it has a lot to do with staying true to myself, because maybe I made a couple of books that looked one way, but then I needed to explore something else, and it wasn't what they wanted at all. So I think it's definitely, like any creative journey, it's kind of like this. True to yourself is a good knack, and I mean, many of us have day jobs or versions of our artistic life. That's definitely true for me, and I'm not sad about it. I think my day job feeds my art job, and vice versa for sure.
Do you draw on napkins at Starbucks?
I draw on whatever I can find. Like paper, pen, Sharpie.
Coffee cups.
It happens. It's happened. I had a customer complain because we had fall hot cups, but we didn't have fall cold cups, so I made her a special one.
Oh. She should keep it, I hope.
I hope she did.
Well, again, when I was reading some of these interviews, one of the things that came out was the difference between illustration and, quote, fine art, unquote. I remember reading about N.C. Wyeth, was that he actually never felt good about himself because he wanted to do art, and he ended up in illustration. And I was like, why do you feel bad? I mean, not that I would ever had a chance to explain that to him, but I just love his illustrations.
Maybe the difference, though, is something like, seen from the exploration part of it, when you're making fine art, you decide the path, and you just go wherever the exploration leads you. But if you're doing illustration, you may be responding to the needs of a publisher, the needs of a writer. It's a little more confined. So maybe that's what he was referring to, rather than the prestige value. Did you guys
start in your art career thinking, oh, I'm going to be an illustrator? Yeah? Oh, good.
I decided in high school I was going to spend my life making pictures for children.
How about the rest? Well, you.
Yeah, I actually did find a note to myself when I was 8 years old that I didn't even live in Maine, and I said I was going to live in Maine and illustrate the coast of Maine. I didn't quite make it right to the coast.
That's so funny, because that's what I told my mom, not about Maine, but about around
I'm going to illustrate and write and illustrate children's books on the coast of Maine, and it was kind of spooky that I found that. So yes, I actually did say that when I was little, although I've had a very circuitous path.
I told my mom the same thing in Swedish, because I'm from Sweden. I said, ska jag bo på landet, etc., etc. But what the thing I said was I was going to write and illustrate books for kids, but I also said I was going to ride horses, which I've never done. So that was I think I was about the same age. My mother words. Not yet, right?
Not yet. I still could find out how
pretty
on
big.
the coast.
Yeah, pretty close. You can bike to Simpsons Point.
Well, maybe this is related. I don't know. How did you become interested in doing children's books? I mean, you can illustrate other things, right?
I think part of it for me was being an immigrant. We moved from Sweden to Canada, and I think my mother and I learned English in a public library and stacks of books. So I was just drenched in books, and I can't remember a time I didn't want to do that. I guess I just responded to the form.
I guess if it goes back far enough, it's hard to capture.
I remember thinking it was great to have a baby sister because her stroller could be where we could pile more books. Walk them home.
And I'm the oldest of 5, so I was always surrounded by children's books
Mm-hmm.
for years and years, so that definitely inspired me.
What about either of you?
I wanted to be a children's book illustrator from when I was little because I was always writing stories and doing pictures. And for a while, on between being an interpreter, I was a fine artist and I showed in galleries for about 12 years. But I just really want to do children's books. Well, or children's this. I mean, this is a young adult book, but yeah, books. Paintings, after a while, it just becomes stuff. You know, it's more stuff that you have to either store or people have to store, but books is nice.
That's a good distinction.
That's an interesting perspective.
I have, my answer to that is that I'm just not actually that naturally ambitious of a person. I'm very open, and I've had so many different careers within my time as a working artist that people sometimes don't even believe me that I also was I had a musical theater career as well in San Francisco at the same time that I was working on designing book covers, and then I got it. I sort of fall into things. I accidentally end up at an audition. I get the part. I say yes. I meet my friend. She needs an illustrator. I do it. It happens. It's just I feel very fortunate, but I also just have never. I don't stay in the game that long, and I think some of that is. I mean, I knew when I wanted to quit the performing arts. It was just I was pregnant. I wanted to have a family. I wanted to move. I'm not working as an illustrator at all now because I love the work that I do. It has a lot of traction. It just happens, and so I can't really say that I had an ambition. I guess I did when I was 8 years old, but I haven't had an ambition as an artist to stay in one lane, which is sometimes very frustrating because I feel like, I forgot about this part. And I do feel like it can all be very circular, and it can come back, and that sometimes brilliantly everything connects in one. I'm directing some musicals at our school, and for me to work on a set and performing and teaching, and it's so beautiful how sometimes these things make sense for a little moment.
I like how you said, I say yes, because I think that's a big part of why you land in these things, because you say yes.
Yeah, yes, I do. Right. Yeah.
So do you remember any pictures or images or illustrators that influenced you in your style, or that encouraged you to head in this direction?
I definitely can, because I can think of Tove Jansson, and she's just a huge hero of mine. She's Finnish, but I knew her because every Swedish person reads Tove Jansson, the Moomin Trolls, and so much else that she isn't known for necessarily here. But I have many favorite illustrators
Does
as a
Moomin
kid.
Troll mean something in particular?
Moomin is, I don't know where that came from, but troll is troll.
Right.
They're not really trolls. They do have tails with little tufts, but they're pretty, invented. I just loved her world, and so many others that I don't, could be a rigmarole of recitation if I started going into it. But she really sticks out for me.
I didn't have a lot of beautiful books as a child. We had a lot of cat in the hat type things and whatever was found at a yard sale. So I can't remember, really I found beautiful illustrators as an adult. But I do remember some of those little, like there's one, the King, the Mice, and the Cheese, that's like a little, it's like one of those cat in the hats type stories, and I still look at it and remember every tiny in and out of a line. When you're a child, I think you remember the curtains in your bedroom, or something that was, it could have been anything hanging on the wall that you just, I don't know if every child was like this, but I do believe children are affected by the things, the patterns in their life. So I do remember being especially drawn right into those worlds and just.
I had wallpaper that I used to make faces out of the roses.
Me too.
Just looking at this wallpaper.
I was so excited about wallpaper. I was like, I know.
There's a face in that rose.
Thank God it was the 70s. Oh.
Do you have any particular influences?
There were so many books around, but none in
Particular?
just all of them.
Yeah. How about you?
We had a lot of Ukrainian and Russian books, and a lot of those illustrators didn't stand. I mean, this was communist stuff, so it was like they were part of the big mass. But then I was looking at Edmund Dulac, Arthur Rackham, and then the Ivan Bilibin.
Believe advice for people who are interested in getting into this field. I haven't asked questions about the process. People have talked about agents. They've talked about collaborating with writers. You've talked about working with book publishers. I haven't asked those questions, but they might be things that you talk about if you were advising people in getting into this field. But I wanted to ask you whether you guys had any questions for each other.
First of all, I love your questions.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
I haven't
Yeah.
been asked a lot of these questions. I think some of those other questions aren't really, they're not as interesting to answer as the ones that you've asked about.
Good.
The sort of seeds of where all of this why,
agree.
the sort of why behind it.
Yeah. And the how,
The how
is
is-
subject to the vagaries of who knows what moment you're in. I mean, I got my agent because she walked onto a bus and sat next to me. And I can't say, well, you should get on buses and talk to people. Because that doesn't necessarily work, but it could work.
Right, the how is actually it's almost an impossible, an impossible thing to answer.
Just don't give up, I guess. And
Yeah.
even when I've had, I'm hoping maybe to get some good news on Tuesday or Wednesday, but if I do, it'll be the first good news in that department for like 5 or 6 years, and not for lack of trying. So I tell my students at school that you just have to be okay with rejection in any creative field and not take it, as a definition of who you are.
I think that's probably true, not even in the creatives, or not just in
Yeah.
the creative field.
Life.
Yeah, if you have a goal, whatever it is,
Don't let other people define you.
yeah, and just keep going.
I also think it's really hopeful. I think some of the modern trends are really hopeful for individual artists, because the publishing industry is no longer as monolithic as it once was, where you had to be represented, you had to be with a big publisher, and then the publisher would have to have printed 100,000 books in order for it to make any sense. Now, with short-run publishing and self-publishing and putting things out yourself and getting out there in social media or however you do it, I really do see this as a complete revolution for artists to be able to manage their own careers in ways that it was never even possible. I'm not saying I would be good at that. But
Or that there's any money in it, but, other than those two things.
But I do think that there are, it really is a brave new world in terms of exposure and information sharing, and especially the short run press, where you do not have to have warehouses full of books.
Right, and that then get pulped.
And then you have to decide if you're going to bring them to Goodwill, which I did this summer. Where I was like, I just can't have this many books.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
That's sad.
The one thing too that I try to remember always about rejections is that, having looked at just tons of books and always trying to figure out who the editor is, editors have such different tastes that you just go, okay, I guess this editor really, it makes sense. They wouldn't have liked this book. It was a mistake to send it to them, or they were having a bad day, and there's so many different kinds of books being published, and so many different editors that you can approach.
Angie, you should tell them how you got that book,
I'd love to.
how you
Yeah.
got to be
Yeah.
the illustrator.
Oh, I think she found me. I joined the main Illustrators Collaborative a while ago, and I don't think they're even around anymore, but she found me on their website, I think.
That's kind of what you're talking about, just Lisa was talking about getting your stuff out there and
Yeah.
in a way very
So
different
it was
from
out there
before.
somehow, and she
Yeah.
found it and contacted me.
Nice.
Now, were you in New York before you came here?
Yeah, I was in New York when I illustrated.
And did you find the world of trying to get into this business or in the process of drawing or whatever, did you find it different there than here? Easier, harder?
Not really, I think what happened, I think she was actually looking for a Maine illustrator when she found me.
Okay.
The
But I
strange
grew up in
part
Maine.
was she was from Brunswick.
Yeah.
Found her on
Oh,
that
how
side.
funny.
She was in New
I
York.
was in New
Huh.
York, yeah.
That's funny.
Okay. So, anything you want to ask each other now that you've met and you've seen some of your pictures? or-
I just want to throw in one comment, which is that when the collaboratory first opened, I thought, really? But now I'm kind of turning into a bigger fan, and part of it is that I so often see kids and families in here making stuff. And I remember when my kids were little, we just had one room that never had anything but stuff, art supplies, and the kids would wake up in the morning and say, "Let's play make." And I think that's kind of what can happen in here too. So I apologize for my early unpublicized opinion. But I told absolutely no one, but I changed my mind.
That's okay. It's taken all of us a while to sort out.
Maybe it was in the name.
Yeah. Collaboratory.
Yeah.
I have a question though about illustrating. I go in there all the time and pick up books for my granddaughter, and there is at least thousands of books in there that are totally different. Is it ever overwhelming because of the amount of volume of different illustrators and authors? You know, that you just like this little spot, and it's hard to get established in it, and get somewhere in it.
I mean, I don't know, I've always been of the mind that there's always room for
Me
one
too.
more. In fact,
Yeah.
It's
an
not a
artist,
competition.
an artist
Yeah.
gave me that, when I moved to New Mexico by myself when I was 25. I didn't know a soul, and I wanted to live in Santa Fe, because it just sounded fun. And I was working as a graphic designer at the time, and I met this wonderful man who did not offer me a job, but he said, "Don't be disparaged by how many artists are in this town looking for work. There's always room for one more." And I remember like, I'm gonna take that. And I have said that when I go, I speak at Bowdoin often to young art majors who don't have a roadmap. They don't have med school laid out for that. They don't know what's coming.
So it's more of a passion than the
Yes,
dollar.
that they're just to feel like there's got to be room for one. Always got to be room for one more voice.
And that it's not.
Have you ever made very good money?
I made a great advance on this book.
I had one time when I made
Fantastic.
good money. That was
I
it.
kind of think, how am I going to get back to making as much money as I made? And it's still,
Better go back to color
it's still.
design.
And the thing also is that when I first started getting stuff published was when I finally let go of feeling like it was a competition. I used to kind of feel like, oh well, I just did that, it's really good. But once I let go of that, I decided, what the heck, I'll just do my stuff. Suddenly, wow, contract. But
I do have to say that part of why I moved out of doing this was it was sort of tiring to think, what more? What more?
Is there any
What's
place you
the
can go
next thing?
online to find people, publishers, or anything
well, you could.
that's an easy in? Because that seems like to be the biggest
No.
problem.
No easy in, but you could join Maine Writers and Publishers Alliance or Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, and they do quite good
They do.
mashups and
Yeah, they do. That I've been to some of those. I've been to a national conference,
Yeah,
which
but that
was really fun.
they're good.
Is networking the big thing in art the same way it is in writing or getting any kind
I
of
feel like I
job?
shouldn't answer because I don't do a good job
I
at it.
don't think artists are really that good at it.
No.
There are a lot of us I think a lot of us are introverted by nature, even if we've had to learn how not to be.
That sounds familiar.
And I don't think that it comes. Yeah, I don't think it comes naturally. I think it's kind of a painful part of the process. And I have to add that publicizing your book. I mean, I can perform and on a stage and not feel, but when I had to go out and press the book, it was really hard. It was not the easiest thing, and
It's
it
not
is,
something you do.
but it is part of the success of your book. It's not.
Do you go to
it's not
bookstores or do you go?
bookstores, book signings, things where nobody would show up.
Nobody does sometimes.
Sometimes a lot of people would show up, but even that, it just was meeting the public isn't really. Sometimes it's incredibly fun if there are a lot of little children,
Right.
but
I usually draw people to lure them in, and then they'll come over and look.
and I can't say I haven't been to some really fun. I went to a pretty high level event in San Francisco for the Happiness Tree and Earth Day in a
Oh,
huge
nice.
park with 1,000 people were there, and we were reading the book. But it was, it takes a lot of life force, and it's not really what most artists want to be doing. And that can be a difficult part of the process, but one that I think does add to the picture of a successful artist. There are some pushing into difficult areas, for sure.
Do any of you have any other questions?
Do any of you use social media now?
Oh, look, there's one.
What do you use, Facebook or Twitter?
Instagram.
So what do you do?
I find other paper artists on Instagram and we kind of share what we're doing. So it's nice. You can find people all over the world doing the same sort of thing that you do.
It's the introverts networking.
Exactly.
That's interesting way to look at it.
It's very visual. It's like
Yes.
Do you
a lot
find
of
yourself
pictures.
just staying in one particular type of illustrating, or are you able to go into different illustrating directions?
That's such a good question, Alan, because I think that illustrators feel almost a pressure to develop a style and stay with it. And you do get some advice about that. Like, you got to develop a style and you got to sell it, stay with it. For
Right.
me personally, as soon as my children were older, I didn't feel like painting in those colors anymore. It's another reason I don't, like, a lot, if I were to start now with some new paintings, and maybe it'll happen, my palette would shift. And I don't even think, I think that even the subject matter would shift. I think so much of what I was doing was just about my current world.
Yeah.
And what was really
I agree.
moving
My
me.
current world. I mean, these are such different styles, really. Yeah. This is, this is a book that is newer. It's certainly not new, but I think
Right.
they're all just taking the form they needed that day or something.
Right, so it's
Which is
it's a good question for any artist, really.
Which is a bad marketing device.
Right.
No, it really
Well, I
is.
don't know what I'm gonna go, right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what I'll do next week, right? But it's a great question in general for artists. Is, you have to stay in a lane. Should you? Sometimes that's how you combine your strength and you become an expert in
I think
that.
it becomes like a craft.
And I think with your work,
I think for me,
especially, right?
yeah.
There's a real
I was-
craft element.
I was the opposite.
Right.
I was
And I honor that, it's just
struggling.
not me.
Yeah, struggling for years as an artist, like it's not right, it's missing something, it's not ready. And I think for 10 years I was just like trying to find that one thing that was missing. And that one day I found my style and it felt right.
Oh.
Within a year I had a book published.
That's great.
So for me it was finding that style and finding that niche. And
Right.
now I know what I'm doing.
That's fabulous.
And it felt right and I'm sticking with it.
Yeah, it felt right and I'm sticking with it. Sounds good. It
Yeah.
feels like you. Because I think the trick is to stay you
And
in
it
the
comes to that place
process.
of feeling, right? I come to that place of, all right, does
Yeah,
that,
like
how
it's
does it
missing,
feel?
it's
Yeah.
missing something, and now I
Right.
know what it's missing, and now I can do it.
How about, what I'd love to hear from your end is, what was it like for you to work with a writer's story? And did you like having the structure of the
It
story?
actually had no structure whatsoever.
Did
It's a
you-
book of seasonal haiku, so it was literally, the publisher was like, just make seasonal pictures.
Yeah.
Do whatever you want. I had no art direction
Cool.
whatsoever.
So you weren't following a
I sent
storyline?
her, no, she said, do not illustrate the poems.
Oh,
Nice.
Do not. I just lay them out however you want them, just make seasonal pictures. And
That's fantastic.
yeah, so I
What a
got
broad-minded
free
person.
reign. It was like I sent her sketches, and she's like, "They're great, keep going." I'm like, okay.
When did it come out?
How about the colors? They're great. Just make it.
When did it come out?
Sorry.
When did it come out?
It's a couple of years now. I think it
I
was.
don't know why I didn't detect it, but we do a lot of
It
haiku
was
with my kids at school, so.
very local. 2014
Nice.
was the publishing. Cool. It was a couple
I'm
of
gonna
years
look for it.
ago now. Yeah,
Wow, that is an unusual situation.
and it was, and I considered myself extremely lucky that she was.
Right, because
Doesn't she
never-
market her stuff
A lot of it's
online?
online. It
Publishing.
wasn't- I've never been to a book signing or any kind of,
So how would one find it? Just look for your name, probably.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's on the Instagram.
I have another question. I guess it's only one word, time. Let's say your eyes go. Time, where do you find it? Do you find time? Or do you have to cut time or you don't have time? Or
You make time.
Make time, yeah.
You can
Go to
make
the
time.
time store and get some.
you
Yeah.
know, with everything else that
Yeah.
you're doing in life, it must be a really hard thing to find the time to.
Once you're in it, there is no time, like you're just doing
Yes.
it, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's a wonderful place to be.
Once you do get channeled
Yeah,
into something,
yeah.
your time.
Well, that's where the
really
deadline also can like
Yeah.
move you along, right? It's just right because, right, if I were right now to come up with, I have an idea for a book, but I've had it simmering, marinating for
Hmm,
4 or 5 years.
really?
Right,
Yeah.
when is that gonna happen between emptying the dishwasher and,
No,
not,
no.
I'm not sure when.
I feel for you.
Without,
paper.
right, because I
think
do
we're all
have,
in that boat. you know,
right, there are
in
other
our
pressing
own
deadlines,
ways.
but when that is a really pure, that would be a
Because
really
if it's a
pure.
money thing, then you really have to start to nail it. But if it's a money thing, then.
Then there's all the time in the world.
becomes the time in the world, yeah.
Right, I know. So,
I don't know how many people in the world make their living exclusively as illustrators, but probably not a huge number.
Hmm.
Just the big one.
Just a few, I don't know, could be wrong, I could be wrong.
I have to say that there's part of it that I do not miss. A few things I do not miss is I do not miss being chained to a studio alone. And as much as I think I started out as an introvert in this world, I now just love going out and having a job, meeting people, and then having it be finished, and then starting another one, and not having something go on and on and on in my studio for up to a year. It can be, I don't think I'm cut out for it, for the long haul of being that dedicated to.
Although I'd love to just be sitting in your studio, it's so beautiful. Your studio has all these colors and it's not a mess like my studio. Like my
But
studio.
that's an interesting perspective of the fact that you're doing things alone. You really are, I mean,
Yeah.
in how many other fields do you, except for writers maybe, do you really do nothing but, or composers, you know, things that are, again, creative, that are, you're just working on your own.
Yeah.
Although you
Writers,
guys, I was gonna say, you work with writers, but you're still, or you may work with
I am
writers.
the writer, so I work with me.
There you go.
But often what happens, and my situation was really rare, we came in this together as a team, presented as a team, and we worked collaboratively. That is not how it usually happens. You don't
No.
even meet the writer
Right.
usually as an illustrator, which is even more lonely,
Yeah,
right? So you're not only working alone, but you're in a vacuum feeling like, I hope. I can't imagine
Yeah.
that.
A vacuum of hope. I love that solitude, but I also have a 4-day week job that's full of people, so. Bye.
Her grandpa.
Nice.
Sister and my niece. Yeah, I never
So,
really.
yeah, do you
was-
ever try to collaborate with another illustrator? Like you said, you had a great idea 4 or 5 years, but if it panned out,
I'm
could
telling
you
you,
go talk to like Angie
Maybe.
or
I've
somebody
got
else
two
and say, you know, I've
two
got a
young
great
illustrators living in my
idea.
house who have already passed and I mean it. My daughters are I'm thinking, I just wait long enough and they'll
Yeah.
take the idea.
Mm.
In fact, there's almost nothing that I don't run by them already.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
have, same with my 2 kids, they're just really.
I just did it today. I'm working on these colors and I Clara, come out here, which one? Right? And she's only 14, but the young artists have a
Yeah.
purity about them, not burdened with all kind of context, where they get right to it, right?
We
They're
love
just so good.
Izzy. She's 3 years old. We love
Oh,
her.
no, I'm so crazy about children's art.
The face with the legs.
yes,
Beautiful.
yes,
They're beautiful.
yes.
Oh,
Have you
yeah.
ever seen
Oh, I
those?
love that, I live right there.
Love
The
those.
Yeah.
children, they're illustrating.
I love them.
I
Their
love
artwork
those.
is incredible.
Where is
They-
this?
Oh my
on the
gosh,
fence
I
at Coppin
just-
School, you've got to take
I
a
just
tour.
know- did you print those?
I didn't realize you guys did that,
Yeah.
that's
I couldn't
beautiful,
figure out-
thank you.
Yeah,
It
we've
looked,
done a couple series of
oh,
those now.
they're
My kids went
absolutely
straight through
stunning.
that school, but that was a while ago,
We've
and
done
I live right there, I go
a
visit that.
project.
I really, those are
School.
fantastic.
It's right on Barrows, well,
On Barrows.
on Columbia and Barrows.
And they're about this big, it's all the artwork.
Beautiful work.
Their art teacher is incredible.
Beautiful
They-
work.
Yeah, their artwork is just
So it's on the
It
fence.
is.
like.
It's on the
when
fence.
we
It's-
looked at it, we're like,
Laminated.
it's so over.
Yeah, beyond laminated, it's
Wonderful.
some other
I
process,
don't
it's
know
like
how you did
science.
that, but it made
Yeah,
it look like
so-
it was
Sounds
their
like
real
we
art.
discovered some things about our community and about each other. So
It's good.
I don't think I have any more specific questions. I want to thank you all for coming. This has really been exciting for me. I hope you've enjoyed it. And maybe you guys can connect some other way later.
It's kind of reawakened my desire to get going again on something.
There you go.
No, if that's no, that's good.
And who was it that brought all those pictures?
I know, it's somebody's
I'm gonna take a look
Is
at
that
that.
is that
That's
yours?
my iron.
But-
I wasn't sure what sort of form this was going to
Yes,
take.
so I wanna take a look at that in particular, compare it to the book.
Things that
See,
come-
It's better to see in person.
So thank you very much all for coming, and
Thank you
we'll
for
maybe
this.
have another time.